update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax, rename it. Technologic.
Technology.
Technologic. Technologic. Buy it, use it, break it, fix it, trash it, change it.
First of all, I use the internet like a lot. I used Facebook and Twitter to get feedback from my audience as production was going along. So after like my rough cuts, I'd maybe post that on social media sites and ask for feedback from that, which was really helpful in terms of deciding where the narrative should go and what other footage I needed to get. During the research stages, I relied quite heavily on like social media sites to get like audience research. With my target audience research, I also did a survey on SurveyMonkey, so I could ask like more targeted questions that I knew that target audience would have some kind of opinion on. And the target audience for like indie electro, usually like a mixed bag in terms of gender, but it usually ranges between like 18 and 25. So I'd ask questions along the lines of who do you think should be like represented in the video, and I mean for the most part the results were that people thought both genders should be represented in the video, which I did end up doing based on that research that I got. I found Twitter and Facebook were really useful for feedback because it's the sort of websites that my target audience go on frequently, so if they're active on those websites I'm more likely to be able to get good feedback from my target audience. It's like YouTube I used for like all of my inspiration, so I researched videos not only by my band Mount Kimby, but also videos by like Beck and Grimes and other like indie electro kind of artists. I also used YouTube to actually like post some of my blog posts, mainly because this makes it more interesting if like the stuff on your blog is in lots of different mediums and not just all written. I also used like WhatsApp to get audience feedback as well, like as I was going through the creative process, so before I'd actually finished filming it all, just to ask them things like how can I improve, how can I make it more relatable, because they are the target audience, so I want to be able to make sure I'm definitely getting the messages I want to get across. I also used YouGov Profiler to get information about the target audience of the actual band that the song I was doing is from. And what I found from that is like the band is so niche that they weren't even on that website. So I just had to use bands like Daft Punk to like similar bands to them to get that research. But what really that told me is that they are niche and so have very niche interests. In fact, I think some of the interests I saw listed were like knitting, shopping in like shops like Banana Republic. So I tried to like use this information that I found in the audience research, my actual video, to show niche characters, and hopefully those characters are representative of like niche people, which the audience are. I also used websites like SlideShare, eMaze and Prezi to post things onto my blog, like of my research. In the planning stages of my video, I used websites such as BlendSpace and PhotoPeach to post images of like potential locations I could use and also possible costumes and props. And for the most part, the costumes and props I did end up using were very minimal, just because it's not conventional of the genre to have anything that's too outgoing. It's all fairly subtle. But yeah, so BlendSpace and PhotoPeach provided like just another medium of posting onto my blog basically. I also used like Google just to search things like the weather, and I have like a weather app on my phone as well, because when I was filming I know the weather is very temperamental, and whilst I didn't necessarily need to make it look like it was all filmed on the same day, I felt having some kind of uniformity in the weather is probably a good idea because it just makes it look a little bit less modelled. Oh, I also used the scanner that was on my printer to like scan in images of like storyboards and shot lists as well. Yeah, and again I also used SlideShare to post like the actual final location shoots that I found. Also with the planning stage I used Google Maps quite a lot, and like it may sound weird, but when I was finding locations I wanted somewhere that wasn't too far but something that also like fitted what I was after. And with doing this sort of social realist kind of feel that comes very frequently from indie electro, so I wanted a location that kind of had like pylons in it, just because I thought it had quite a suburban feel to it, which is conventional of that genre. And so in the end I did find a location not too far from me that I was able to get on a bus to with my friend to actually do the shooting for, and it had like a railway track as well and some like railway like tunnels and bridges, which I thought were really good because it sort of showed the trapped isolation that this character felt. And I was able to do this basically by using Google Maps to actually find the location in the first place. I also, in like the planning stage, I'd use Spotify as well to actually listen to the music when I was like on the bus on the way to work or whatever, and use my phone to jot down notes onto my blogger directly, so as I was on the go I was able to still plan and contribute to this. In the production stages of my video, the camera was one of the big key bits of technology that I used. I used a Canon EOS 600D, which is what I'm filming on right now. And I used that for the research and planning for like the location shoot, and I used the same camera as well for, well, the evaluation that I'm doing right now, and also my audience feedback that I got. This camera was really good because it's easy to use. It provided me with like enough for what I was doing. And I know the actual genre is fairly minimal anyway, so I didn't need to think of anything like changing lenses or adding any effects like with lighting. Because I know last year I used like a 3-point lighting for my film noir, because it's conventional of that genre basically. But with like a social realist looking music video that you get with indie electro, it's not conventional to have anything like that. So I didn't use any lighting, and pretty much all of my shots were filmed outside. So I just relied on like natural lighting. On the camera I used features such as like the white balance, just to make sure that it wasn't like oversaturated or anything like that, because it is quite a minimal kind of genre, so a lot of the actual content of the video will come during the production stage. Very little is actually added to it in post-production, so I made sure that the footage was as close to what I wanted it as possible, so I didn't have to add as much in post-production. I think as well the characters are more relatable for my audience if I don't add any effects or like oversaturate the images or anything, because then it does just seem more real, which, like I say, is conventional of this whole genre and the social realist element that comes with it. In post-production I used Premiere Pro to actually edit the video and the footage together. As I say, I didn't really add too much in the way of effects to the footage. The post-production as well, on Premiere Pro, I added like a tint to like the first half of the video, just before like the bridge, just to show more of a contrast between before the character's escapism and after the character's escapism.
Scroll it, pose it, click it, cross it, crack it, twitch, update it, name it, read it, tune it, print it, scan it, send it, fax me.
With the digipack and the advert that we had to make for the ancillary task, I used Photoshop for both of these items because it just allowed me to do everything that I needed it to do. So for example, on Photoshop I'd crop the images so that they were correct size for like the squares of the digipack, and I also used the internet as well with the digipack to actually do the research for it. So I'd use Google and YouTube and like any other websites to actually see that digipack and get a greater understanding of what the original like album for the actual band looked like, which actually I've got here, this one right here. So I used like Blogger again to sort of analyse the original digipack and get a greater understanding of the reasons why they used the certain things on it. So for example, I think that they like use the block bold colours and geometric shapes rather than actual pictures of people, potentially because their audience is so niche and so vast. So for example, I think both genders would be able to relate to that in some way because it is just so vague. I did use characters, feature actual people on my digipack cover, just to make clear that it was cohesive to like the actual music video and the digipack and poster as well. Just to keep some element of uniformity between the two items again. I didn't change much in the way that the actual images looked for the digipack and the poster or advert. I just made them sort of the correct size, added like different coloured strokes to them. Just experimented really with like this whole block colour scheme, and I think it was effective overall because it was fairly minimalist. And I think an element of minimalism does come with doing something in the social realist genre, because you're just sort of showing things how they are and showing these suburban areas. And I think whilst suburban areas and block colour schemes aren't exactly the same thing, they are still minimal in that there's very little to them. So in that there's very little in a suburban area.
Technologic. Technologic. Technologic.
One of the main bits of technology that I used throughout the whole of my productions, Blogger, I use this to like post all of the research, planning and production things that I'd done. I was able to add like labels to make it easy to navigate, which is obviously more convenient for the examiner, but also I was able to like embed stuff from other websites. So for example, I'd embed all the different stages of my video by posting those to YouTube and then embedding that onto the Blogger, and I was able to embed my things from like SlideShare and Blend Space and Emaze and Prezi. So during the production I didn't need to use like a microphone or anything, obviously, because it's just a music video. But similarly I didn't use a microphone last year either, just because we didn't have any actual speech in our film. I used like a stabilizer as well for my camera, and it was very conventional of that kind of genre, because in a lot of the videos that I have researched, such as You Took Your Time by Mount Kimby, the video for that uses like stabilised shots or like tracking shots. Obviously they have a much higher budget than myself, but similarly I did use a stabiliser just to make sure that all of the moving shots that I used were smooth and didn't look too jumpy. And actually I used this for the whole video. I didn't ever use a tripod once, just because I wanted that sort of flowing feel to it, and I think that did come across, so I'm very happy about that.